She is stylish, she is fun, she is chic. And she features this beautiful collar, this nice drape on the side. Join me as I sew the Style Arts Toni dress. All right, everybody, this is kind of an impromptu sew with me / sew along for the Style Art Toni designer dress. There are a few steps in here that I did not do. I did not add the pockets, but we are going to go through it. I love how it turns out in the end, but let's go ahead and put this all together, and then I'll come in the end for a full review. Okay, I am getting started with sewing the Toni dress. I am going to do what the instructions say, and that is adhere all of the interfacing to all of the parts. This is knit, so I am using knit interfacing for each piece. So I am going to do that first and then move on to the first step for sewing. So you need to grab your collar based on the first couple steps. You are grabbing your collar and then the collar insert. And what you're doing is sewing the ends, matching up the notches and sewing the ends together, right sides together. So let me pin. So you have 4, right? Because you have 2 of the collar. So you need to sew this piece and this piece right sides together. I will show you what that, I'll do one and show you what that looks like. So this is how it looks once you have the ends sewn together. You've added that smaller piece to the larger piece. So this is what it looks like. And then they just want you to then put both of those pieces, as you can tell I have mine press those seams open, and they want you to put these now right sides together. Make sure everything is lined up really good. Okay, you can see mine is now all clipped together. And so what you are going to do, that you should have a mark here. You can't see mine through the interfacing, but you're going to sew from here, from that dot that you would have marked on your fabric, all the way here. This is a corner. You're going to go up 90 degrees, keep going all the way till you get to the other end. And then you are going to clip the corner, just so it makes it easier to turn out. And then you're going to turn this right side out. So go ahead and do that, and we will come back once I have sewn and clipped and turned right side out. Okay, so this is how it looks once you get it all nice and pressed and turned right side out. Now the thing is, it does mention about understitching. Now it tells you it has 2 different ways you can understitch, depending on if you are going to wear your collar on this dress up or down, and that will determine which side you will understitch. Or it says if you do not know which way you will wear your dress, it says just turn it really nice like this, right side out, and just give it a good press. So for me, I don't know how I would wear it mainly. I'm thinking with the collar up, but who knows, I might want to wear it with the collar down. So I'm not going to understitch mine, because once you understitch, it's almost, you're almost stuck with wearing it one type of way, because you don't want the understitch showing. So we are going to go ahead and move on to the next step. Okay, we are at step 4. Now you have your front facing piece, and then you have your back piece. What they want you to do is either to serge, overlock, serge the edges. So that means going ahead with the piece and just serge here and here. Now normally I would have applied my interfacing differently, so you wouldn't see the serged edge where it will be a nice clean finish. I've shown that many times on my channel, but I just want to get through the construction of this because this is the first time I'm making this, and I don't want to mess anything up. So I'm gonna go ahead and serge the edges here, serge the edges here, and then all you're doing is then attaching the shoulder pieces together for each of these, the front and the neck facing, back and front neck facing pieces. Okay, so here are the neck edge pieces together. They're sewn together, and I have pressed my seams open. So you see my serged edge all the way around here. So now what it wants you to do is, so you have this edge now. This is the edge with that little cut. You see that little 90-degree angle? What they want you to do first is serge this edge. So go ahead and serge this edge. Then once you serge the edges together, you're going to put them right sides together like this. And then stitch starting here all the way up here till you get to 1/4 of an inch from this edge. So make sure you mark your pattern. You can't see my mark again because of the lighting, but you're going to start stitching here all the way to 1/4 of an inch. You're going to stop. You want to leave an opening there. That's there on purpose. So make sure you stop at that point here where you would mark on your fabric, and then you want to press that open. So you see here how I've serged the edge, and then I only stitched up to this part, so you can see that little opening. And if I flip it over, you might be able to tell even a little bit better. See that opening there? See that? Yeah. Now let's move on to step 6. Okay, we are at step 6. It says to serge the 2 back pieces separate and then stitch them together. I am not doing that. I'm just going to stitch the center back seam of the back together, and then I'm going to serge it for step 6. As you can see here, I didn't serge the pieces separate. I just stitched my back pieces together and then serged down the middle, and then you just press it really good to one side, and then it will have you to do the same. It says the same for the shoulder pieces, to serge them separately, the edges to serge or overlock the edges separate, then stitch them together. I am not doing that. So step 7 says to do that. What I am going to do is put my front and my back right sides together at the shoulder seams and go ahead and stitch them together, and then I will serge the edge to lock everything in place. Okay, so this is the back, this is the front, and so I have like I said, stitched my front and back together and then serged it. Now the instructions on step 8 would have you, so the sleeve piece, you should have notches in them. And so let me find my notches here so you can see them. So there's a notch here. This is the front and then the back. So again, here's the front. If you can see that notch right there. And then the back, there's a notch right there. So that is your sleeve. So if you put these 2 notched pieces together, all of this here from the shoulder down to that notch is the sleeve. That's where your arm will go into. So the instructions have you serge from notch to notch. So you will serge all the way from this open notch all the way up and down, and then it just simply wants you to turn it inside. Once you have that serge, turn it inside and stitch it down. That's the only thing it wants you to do. So go ahead and do that. I'll do that on both sides and show you what it looks like. And just for reference, from one notch, serge all the way to the other notch from on the front and back, and then the only thing you're going to do is then turn that under and then stitch it down, and that becomes your finished armhole. Okay, so I wanted to lay this out so you can see it. I know it's a little hard to see because this is all the same color, but you have that collar piece that you did in the very beginning. You want to pin that pin or clip, as you see here, all the way around the neckline. So this is the right side. Go ahead and lay that all the way around. And so based on the instructions, you are I read through, we are at step 9, 10, and 11. I am going to do a little bit of a shortcut. We'll see how it works. But essentially what you're doing is once you attach this collar, you stitch it down. Now remember, make sure all of your notches are marked, because you would think that the areas here where that one collar piece met the back collar piece, you would think that matches to the shoulder. It does not. It does not. There is a notch that matches to the shoulder on that piece. So don't be confused and don't think you're doing something wrong. And then you want to stitch from the bottom here. As you can tell, this is the front that I have laid out of the dress. And you just want to stitch. You see this point here? Stitch all the way around here. Because what you're going to do, remember, you already had your facing piece here. What you are going to do is, after you've stitched this, again, I'm doing this in a little bit of a different order because I understand where it's going. So once this is all stitched down, then stitch close your front, right? Then once your front is stitched down, and don't worry, I'll show this, then you will lay this collar piece. And remember, we had that slight opening for, let me turn this around. Here it is. These are your shoulders. Let me lay this properly. So your shoulders will match up with your shoulders. This front piece will match up at that, remember that little opening we had, and we will stitch that down. But first, let me go ahead and stitch this down, and then I will pin this on top. So go ahead and stitch this part down. Pretty easy. We're almost done. Okay, you see I have now stitched down that collar all the way around to the outside. So what I am going to do is, so the front is still open, right? I am going to turn this inside out and then stitch this front all the way down. Let me clip this so you can see. Okay, so from a different view, so now this is now inside out, and so I am joining those pieces. This is the center front that was still unstitched. So what I am going to do is actually, because again it tells you to serge or overlock the edges of the front first and then stitch together, I'm just going to stitch it together and stitch it all the way down, and then I will also serge that stitch once I am done. Okay, so you see now that I have stitched that down all the way around, and then I stitched my center seam here and serged. So now you want to take that facing piece that you have, and remember you have that little point there. You want to lay this carefully all the way around. So what's happening is this collar is being sandwiched. So this is right side of the dress. This here is going right side down, the facing. And so all of that is getting sandwiched. This here is getting sandwiched between the facing and the main outer piece. And it will be bulky. This seam will be bulky, but you will be trimming down the seam per the instructions, and then you need to understitch. And when you understitch per the instructions, again, you're understitching to the facing. So once you turn it in, you don't have anything pulling out or showing from the outside. So I will go ahead and pin this down. Again, your shoulder seams should match the shoulder seam of the dress. Pin all the way around, and then you will stitch everything down and then trim that seam because it is bulky, and then you want to understitch the facing piece and turn everything in. And the last part, we're almost done. if I didn't mention it, I am eliminating the pockets on this one just because the drape of this knit is really drapey, and so I'm thinking I don't think I will ever put anything in the pockets on this type of dress, this weight of knit, and so I'm just going to eliminate the pockets. But let's go ahead and attach this, and then we'll be moving towards the end. So as you can see here, this is quite bulky, all of this knit that you are pinning together here, but that is okay. Make sure your shoulder seams, you have your shoulder seam of the facing, shoulder seam of the dress, make sure those are matching up nicely, and continue to pin all the way around. Everything should match up, all of your notches, everything should be matching up. So you see my facing, you have the collar sandwiched in between, and then the dress. I am going to go ahead and stitch all the way around. Then I'm going to trim the seam and then understitch to the facing. So when you understitch, after you've stitched everything together, all the seams get stitched towards the facing. So when you turn it inward, you won't have anything poking out. So I will go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back. So when you're understitching, just so you can see, this is the wrong side of the collar, or I'm sorry, the facing piece. So I've trimmed down all that bulk, and what you're doing is just pushing your seam over, and it is quite bulky, all of this knit, and you're just stitching this seam to the facing. So when you turn it inwards, you won't have anything poking out. So you just slowly just go around stitching that facing to, and this is the understitching part, to the facing. Stitch that seam to the actual facing piece here, all the way around. Okay, so I have attached everything. Again, you can't really see, but I've turned my facing on the inside. I haven't given this a good press just yet, but here's the collar. I am liking the way it looks, but when there's something funky going on here. I feel like this needs to be stitched to the points here, and there is a gap here. So I'm not quite sure what I did there, because this is how it should look. It's like meeting into a point, and this is not. There's this gap. So I am just going to unpick this area and close this up so it meets here. So again, I'm not quite sure, and it's really me stitching this center front seam up higher is what I'm going to do. I will unpick the all of the stitching I just did in just this little bit of area. I'm not worried about, you know, the amount that I will be unpicking, because it's just a little bit. This is all I need to bring in. Again, you can't really see, but here's the point. The points here I want to meet. So this is maybe an inch that I have to close up. So I'm just going to unpick this center front seam and stitch this closer together. And then we're going to go ahead and hem this sucker up, sew up the sides, which is sewing up the side seams of this and putting the hem in, and we will be all done. It does talk about doing an arm tack once you start sewing the sides down. They want you to put an arm tack in there just to keep this in place. So I'll probably start my stitching just maybe a ½ inch above where the arm seams end, where the stitching starts and ends here, and then stitch my sides all the way down and then do my hem. But that is what I am going to do, and so that'll be the dress. That will be it, because I am not doing the pockets. I will put the hem in, and yeah, that is it. All right, let's get on into the review. Again, this is the Toni dress by Style Art. I will go over a few things. As you can see, look who made an appearance. Miss Lady Dane. She has not been in the videos in quite some time, but it has been some time since I've done a pattern review. And here I jump back in with a sew along of sorts. And I say it's of sorts because I didn't show me sewing. I just showed the different parts that I was doing. I did talk about a few things that I did not do. So if you skipped ahead, because this is timestamped, go back and watch those parts. But this part is to give you a full review and my thoughts. So for those who are not familiar with the Toni dress by Stylark, it goes up to a size 30 with a bust, finished garment measurement bust of 64 5/8. My full bust is a 49. So I decided to go with a size 20, which is 52 3/4. However, I was going to go for the size 18 because that has a finished garment measurement of 50 3/8 inches. But I was like, nah, I don't want to have to skim back on the seam allowance sewing it. So I decided to go up to the size 20 and do a 5/8 inch seam allowance instead. And so that is the size that I went for, and I just based the whole thing off of my bust measurement. I didn't worry about the waist. I knew that it would be fuller in the hips and in the waist area, and I absolutely love the final fit. Now, one of the things that I do want to point out, this particular pattern, I sewed mine in a knit. This knit came from Hobby Lobby, and it is a more drapier knit, and you'll see that in the pictures as well. But just so you all know, this is the fabric suggestions that they have is silk, crepe, rayon, and suitable knits. Now, it doesn't say stable knit, it doesn't say drapey knit, it just says suitable knit. So as I was putting this together, as you can tell in the video, I opted not to put the pockets in because of the drape, because it's so drapey, so fluid. I was a little concerned about how the pockets would come off since the pattern doesn't really say what type of knit to use. So I just eliminated the pockets. I decided not to put the pockets in because also with the drape of this particular knit, and if you have a knit like this as well, keep this in mind, would you put anything in the pockets of the dress? We all like pockets in dresses. I do, but there are times when I just eliminate them when I think, I don't know that I will actually use them, or if I think it will cause the garment to look a different type of way when wearing. So I did eliminate the pockets. Now for my size, it says use 3.10 yards of fabric. I purchased 4 yards of this fabric. I use maybe... One of the things I want to share before I jump all the way into the review is the pattern piece for the front and back is huge. This is huge. You will have to, depending on how you have it printed with the copy shop, either you have it printed on one sheet or you have the 2 pieces. If you missed my video, I'm printing and purchasing and storing your PDF patterns. Catch my video that just went up on Sunday. But you will have to tape that together, and it is pretty big. So keep that in mind as you are thinking about your fabric. You want to make sure you have enough fabric. 2 3/4 yards, and the way I did that, you know how you see the diagrams and how they tell you how to lay out the pattern pieces and all of that. Well, to me, I mean, let's utilize this fabric. Let's not waste any fabric. And because of how large the pieces are and where there's a curve and everything like that, I was putting those pattern pieces up in there. So the rest, I have like the rest of that 4 yards left. What's that, 1.25 yards, maybe a little more. And I was going to do a tank, the ME2026, but I think it's enough to do what I'm looking for is and I don't have this pattern, so if any of you have suggestions, let me know. Indie or commercial. Indie is fine. The twist front, but I want it to be sleeveless, so I want a twist front top where it twists in the front. I think that would be so pretty in this fabric. Anyway, sidebar. So just putting that out there. If you have any suggestions on patterns like that, that sleeveless, that have that kind of that twist front, would love to use the rest of that fabric to make something like that. So again, I cut out a size 20, and I thought this came together really easy. Really easy. I will say, because it does say, if you read the tips and hints and things that they have at the start of this pattern, it does say the trickiest part is this V. And I will say that is, if you saw as you saw me work through, I had to unpick this because I didn't feel like the end of the collar down there came close enough together. And so I just unpicked that area up in here, and then I unpicked where I joined the facing piece, and I end up cutting off the excess and sewing this back together just so it can lay how I wanted it to lay. Now remember, I talked through the whole understitching. You could have understitched the collar. For me, I didn't know how I would wear it the most, collar up, collar down. I like it with the collar up. I absolutely love it with the collar up, but as you can tell, it stands really nice. And I used a knit interfacing. I didn't use woven interfacing for the collar. I used a knit interfacing. I thought it was really easy with the sleeves. It's not like you have to put sleeves on. You're just turning over, serging and turning over the edges. They made the construction of this so super easy. I definitely would like to make another one. Not anytime soon. Probably not until maybe when it gets cooler here, which probably wouldn't be till December, January, something like that. In a little bit more of a staple knit. Not too much heavier than this, but a little bit more heavy than this. Is super drapey. And then I will add the pockets in there, because then I can see in something a little bit more of a stable knit that using the pockets would be good. And I do have to apologize if the lighting is going in and out. We have some overcast. And I did not mention I am wearing McCall 7969. I made this as part of my 10-piece summer dress collection series from last year. So I'll make sure that this pops up at the end of the video if you want to check out my review on this and the changes I made to this one. But I must say, I mean, it's only 7 pattern pieces, and the instructions always with, you know, style art things can be a little hit or miss and trying to understand what they're saying and everything. So yeah, I just share with you the things that I maybe skipped over, or because they had doing a lot of the seams separate and then sewing them together, and I was like, yeah, why do all that? But that is essentially the pattern. I thought super easy, and typically I don't do sew-alongs or kind of the sew with me's unless I made the garment first, so I can work out any kinks. But I figure I'm gonna take y'all on along with me on the journey, kinks and all, and we're gonna work it out. But it wasn't that much. It was just that end with that little V and what I did to fix it. And so if you want to see, there is probably more of what I will call a proper sew along. I saw that Minerva did maybe almost a year ago. I can link that down in the description box if you're interested in that, where it takes you through a little bit more of some of the other, you know, formal steps and everything, showing you the sewing and all of that, because I wasn't showing that in my video. But I highly suggest this. I think this is so comfortable, so casual, so chic, just, you know, running errands type dress, just comfortable, something comfortable. It's the summer and everything, and then we just like to be comfortable, at least I do. So I should have been popping up pictures and whatnot here and video. Love, 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 love. You will have to let me know, what do you think of this dress? And what you think, how it looked, how it turned out. Would you try it? Let me know down in the comment section. So stay tuned for Sunday's video. There's a couple different things I'm thinking about doing on Sunday. There's something I need to share. All my members, stay tuned. You have something coming up on Friday in a couple days, so stay tuned. But yeah, so stay tuned for the next video. I am, like I said, back in my sewing groove, having some fun, and this was one that I was really anxious to get sewn up, and so she is here and I am rocking her. So that's it, everybody. If you have any questions, please let me know. Put them down in the comment sections below. Check the description box if you are interested in a more formal sew along. I'll link the one from Minerva down there. And yeah, all right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in today. I greatly appreciate it. And don't forget, if you are interested in attending the sewing retreat in 2026, a link to that will be down below. And watch the video from this year and check out the reviews and everything. Come join us. I would love to have you. All right, everybody, have a blessed one, and we'll see you on Sunday. Bye.